Battle Network 2. God, was this game an improvement over the original one in, every single way.
Though when this game was released, apparently a lot of professional reviewers saw absolutely no difference in this one from the original, and thus began the streak of utterly writing them off as derivative of each other. Hell, I saw a few articles reviewing Yokai Watch 2 in 2016 that used the Battle Network games and this specific one in particular as the example of what not to do when making sequels, and how they change nothing between entries, even though Yokai Watch is meant to be more like Pokemon.
Which kinda shows the fallacy of rampant professional bias in the video game industry. The Battle Networks, more follow the same type of updating the original Megaman games did. Same system, new ways of doing things in that system, with new story elements and stages made the focus. This is why internet reviewers emerged, people. Hell, Battle Network 2 is in competition for the third best game in this sect of the franchise, usually battling Battle Network 5 for that slot.
And for me, as I always more stress the importance of the story of an RPG over the gameplay, since RPGs are primarily about the story, as long as that gameplay is not outright detracting from experiencing the story, that criticism nonetheless baffles me, since Battle Network 2 doesn't even repeat the same story of the original game, but builds off of it. The formula of it is the same, yes, but there's signs of character growth and a lot of differences in the scenarios that makes that condemnation of no differences between them ring all the more hollow, as Battle Network 2 completely reinvented things to a far better model while keeping to the general outline of how to do it all.
Which is made none more obvious than how they treat hit points from here on out.
Now, as I said in the original Battle Network review, Megaman's hit points automatically recovered after battle outside of a Lekman stage. That, however, changes in Battle Network 2 and all subsequent entries to not be the case, with any damage you take to Megaman carrying over from battle to battle. This encouraged use of the recovery chips that, in the first game, were pretty much unneeded, as if you couldn't beat a boss without them, you were pretty much going to suck at everything else. Here, there's a tactical use of them to recover at the start of battle, or make use of other chips that nullify damage that places more emphasis on strategy, as opposed to just spamming attacks.
And also implements an element of resource conservation with the new sub-chip system, a set of out-of-battle items which can recover Mega Man's health like the E-Tanks from the original games, but also include ones that can affect the rate of virus encounters, so either farming viruses or avoiding them is more doable.
Another among those is the Unlocker chip, which has its use in removing locks on special rare data cubes that are openly scattered about. A large contrast to Battle Network 1, where all of those were barricaded until the absolute last stages of the game. And while Battle Network 2 onwards would still have high-level chips and items locked up behind barriers that only a late-game item could release, this Unlocker chip allowed us to also get powerful ones in the interim, which would still massively improve our ability to progress through it. Battle has changed in some ways as well. Escape no longer requires a battle chip, just a button press while in the custom menu, which has also been revamped to a new max limit of 10 battle chips, as the 15 from Battle Network 1 was deemed to be too excessive.
As 10 would then later be considered by the time the production team got to Battle Network 4, when they reduced the chip limit from 10 to 8, which pissed off a lot of players and made number soul a staple.
Likewise, most games beginning with this one would have wildly different battle chips to collect for new gameplay strategies to be made manifest. While many of the same chips do carry over, such as the cannons, spreader, the life store chips, and many of the Navi chips of Land and Hub's friends so as to retain the same framework for both newbies and those that love some of the older strategies, the variety of chips vastly increases from here on out and are less reliant on differing combinations of these same chips to create different advances. And many of them are far more powerful or do more to accent your battle strategies than just spamming a few overly powerful but rare chips required to do anything. Element chips have more types of use than just the same form of attack, and the common heat shot and bubbler are very damn easy to use alongside being much faster than the previous fire and water towers you were stuck with, making battles also much faster. Hell, the program advances are all actually functional in this game, as while the cannon chips still do the invulnerable and can shoot for X amount of time thing, they're pretty much the only ones that do that, and the rest of the program advances have far more beneficial or varied effects than the same damn ones over and over again. It even creates some pretty damn impressive combinations of chips through the larger variants and options and effects, even though many of them are with chips you would never use regularly in battle. Hell, now in the game you can register a regular chip, one that will always appear at the beginning of the battle, and the custom menu, which adds a new stat to Megaman which can be raised to be able to select more and more powerful regular chips. A lot of people choosing to slot in the newly introduced full custom battle chip into that slot, so you can immediately get your next set of chips after you finish your first salvo. Made all the better in how Battle Number 2 also introduced the asterisk letter chips, which can be used with any letter type as an additional free action not limited to being either the same letter or same chip type. These become valued all the more as you can substitute an asterisk chip in place of one needed to trigger a program advance. Say you have an A, B, and asterisk cannon chip. Put them in sequence, and that asterisk gets counted as a C chip and still triggers Zeta Cannon. With advances that need different chip types, they can also be just one of the chips needed, or all of them, which results in some ridiculously powerful combos.
Though probably the most powerful chip people combo with in this game is, well,
Prism!
yeah, that's exactly what it does in this game, and also Battle Number 3. You place it, hidden with an attack, and it bounces it to every adjacent square. Use it with the grass stage and the heat spreader program advance or hyper burst, and it can do well over 1,000 damage. Hell, it reflects the attack done by Double Hero, so it does 1,400!
Though in my opinion, the most annoying to try and use, and this is one I have problems executing through the end of the series, is the Variable Sword and Neo-Variable Sword, a pair of super powerful sword chips that appear in Battle Network 2 onwards, that by holding down A and putting in a string of button commands, allows it to become a different sword attack, the most powerful being the Elemental Sonic Boom, which launches 4 elementally charged attack waves, though that one is exclusive to Battle Network 3. Otherwise, the best in Battle Network 4 onwards is its Double Life Sword.
It's exceedingly useful as the Variable Sword and Neo-Variable Sword, after Battle Number 2, become the single most powerful sword chips you can use on an enemy that's not invading your own field. Otherwise, it's the Slasher chip. Or sometimes the Custom Sword, a sword that has the Range of Life Sword and can gain up to 256 attack points, depending on how full your custom gauge is. And due to reflex failures, I always screw up the timing to all of them.
And these 3 sword chips can be combined with the Protoman Navi chip into the new version of the Double Hero Program Advance. As said, I love that advance, so it's always been irritating to me that I never got any good at using the chips that are individually responsible for creating it.
Though Prism is not the most common dealer of insane inconsistent damage. That's for later. But again, it's evidence that the professional reviewers slamming this series for its supposed monotonous, unchanging repetition are dead wrong due to all the things that are different and made better by improvements made between each of the entries. Well, most of the entries. And the most change was committed between Battle Networks 1 and 2. And I haven't even listed all of them yet.
Regardless, let's start on the story recap, with Lan and Megaman on their last day of class before summer vacation.
Which timestamps this occurring at about late July, when you remember this is supposed to be the Japanese school system.
As we get checked out, and Lan given a reminder to do his summer homework, Dex lets slip of another new thing the game gives us. Yes, side quests. A major element of the game's story is the concept of the official city net battlers, who can receive commissions for performing requested tasks after completing a series of licensing exams, which you need to retake periodically to get the next level license. These quests give up a few varying things, most critically HP power-ups, but also Zenny and some harder-to-find chips. The exams for taking on these quests also serve as regular lockout points for progression in order to make sure one is prepared for the next section.
I really feel these, at least early on, are a more fair way to lock out the ability to move on with the story than doing so by forcing you to fight the side bosses. As, well, the thing with the side bosses is, without that element, they are completely worthless with regards to the main story. Battle Network 2 still has side bosses, but gives most of them more relevance in why they exist where.
And often with Battle Network 1's side bosses, they showed up at a point in time where you were not ready for them. Whereas these are all challenges of your skill given at points where you should have progressed enough, if you've been collecting the chips and power-ups along the way, that you should be able to handle. Though I admit, their execution of these challenges leaves something to be desired, as it always breaks down to 1, hunting through the internet for some one or thing, and then 2, an ever-lengthening series of battles with specific virus mobs back to back to back. they essentially become endurance tests to your whittling health and the capabilities of your battleship folder.
They're all doable, but get downright exhausting when you eventually need the S, double S, and triple S licenses for post-game content, which have 10, 20, and 30 respective consecutive virus battles. I admit, even with the best folder in the game, I lost during the triple S challenge a few times, and it's time-consuming to repeat.
Regardless, after directing a gas line repairman to Yai's place and getting chewed out by Lan's mom for his poor GPA,
because of course we're going to have this cliché,
we get Lan to do his virus-busting homework, which tutorials a bunch of the gameplay changes that I already mentioned. And the pair head off to the Net Square to begin the licensing exam. The Net Square is another stylization improvement seen here, as it consolidates a lot of the shopping areas that, before, were scattered haphazardly around areas, and thus are now more consolidated, giving safe areas for players to not encounter viruses outside of events.
Plus, lore-wise it makes sense for the virtual world to be more organized than it often seems to be, with how they map the areas to add travel time syncs.
The Z license requires tracking down the hero data and hope data from the early net areas, and with that, we have the Z license. However, we get a call from Glide, who informs us that Gasline Repairman, he's actually evil, having infected Yai's house with a virus that causes it to release gas throughout the complex, leaving Yai to suffocate to death. Dex fails in trying to save her himself by just muscling through the gas, with us diving into the heater computer to remove the viruses. If this was Battle Networks 4 through 6, this area would be infested with environment or wind-aligned viruses. As this is Battle Network 2, we're just stuck with generic Metors, cannons, and bomb throwers, with the occasional wind box to push or pull us. And of course, who should appear to block us from saving our friends, but...
Nah, it's Airman! Nah, it's Airman! How can we possibly defeat him? Yeah, he's actually not that hard. A hell of a lot less frustrating than his mainline counterparts. Or Fireman from Battle Network 1. Yeah, I've actually played Megaman 2. Like I said, I have the games, I just really suck at them.
His operator, Arashi, wasn't targeting Yai explicitly, but any rich kid he could find so as to extort money from their parents for his organization's true plans. And we completely messed that up for them. Though the exchange between him and Lan is pure comedy gold. He escapes, with Yai recovering and them chewing out Lan because, he saw her naked when they pulled her conscious body out of the bath? Way to be grateful for saving your ass.
Though there is a reason we never see Arashi again, as his boss does not tolerate failure.
He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3.
Remember this ties into my issues with the game's actual big bad guy. And yeah, he's actually dead. Will Arashi and Airman reappear in Battleship Challenge? That game's non-canon. We just witnessed someone's murder. This game is dark.
Regardless, with vacation now on, Lan has to find something to do. And what better to suggest than a camping trip out into the wilderness? An unsupervised one at that.
Mainly as we never, ever see male Yai or Dex's parents. I think they might be invisible.
None of them can make it today, since Lan just sprung the idea on them, though they're up for it later. Instead, we get an email that leads us to the next license exam. Yes, the first one was simply a qualifier for the official exam, after which you can actually start taking jobs. It takes us to Marine Harbor and the official center, above which Yuichiro Hikari has had his lab relocated for the game due to, I presume, fallout from everything World 3 related, as he's back to working at Scilab in the next game. Whatever. It's just to condense the places you need to travel to down. Outside the official center, however, is the first of these side bosses. This is Rabito, a reporter for Dentown News Network, always out and about on the lookout for a scoop, alongside her net-navvy, Toadman.
And Toadman annoys the crap out of me, as while he's a water element navvy, his attacks are electric.
No, seriously, his Toad Song paralyzes you and deals double damage if you're water attribute, which is made worse due to his elemental field he hides under, so you can't freely attack him back. Curse you, Rabito! Your navvy breaks the common conventions of game design!
Actually, to be fair, that all ends up really helpful when she reappears in Battle Network 5. It's just annoying to fight her in this game.
Well, regardless, beat license. 2 fights, get something for a navvy, and we're golden. Take the quest to get HP memories, and Bob's our uncle. Though, as the pair fall asleep in preparation for the following day, Chud and Protoman find an insidious message written on a BBS.
Death to all infidels. Make America great again. The purge works. I'm a Nigerian prince that wants to share my fortune. The moon landing was an inside job. He still hasn't showed us his birth certificate. Rape, death threats against women, radical feminist critiques of popular media that ignores actual evidence in the contrary in the freaking content, Breitbart, and the conservative news networks. Ugh.
The joke there is, of course, that people have always posted terrible crap on the internet because they think that frees them from responsibility or accountability for their words and actions. It only becomes a problem when people take that bullshit as fact and give them a platform through which idiots flock to them. So, I don't think Chud's actions of dismissing a potential terrorist threat from the organization gospel as that. Due to everything awful spewed on the web, unless you possess evidence to the contrary or do a lot of investigation, it's near impossible to differentiate an actual warning of an attack from the bluster. Anyways, Lan and company head on their camping trip to Okuden Valley, full of
bees, bears, and bombs. Oh my.
And it turns out Chud decided to tag along on Lan's trip as cover for investigating that BBS message, just to be safe, since the message mentioned gospel, an international net mafia that has arisen since World 3 was put in its place. Twice. And, after going through a few activities where we collected hidden environmental key items so we know the area, it turns out that threat was real, with an explosion going off at Okuden Dam, which, if it breaks, would flood all of Den City and drown the populace, on top of shutting down most of the nation's power.
Good thing there's no nuclear power plant downriver this time. Toy Spider-Man was kind of stupid.
So we go to find Chud.
As I said, these games have some issues with their translations.
Yeah, due to the dangers, he pretty much fills Lan in, trusting him to help while he delays the main bomb from going off, ordering him to find all the remote detonators. It's a sign of the shift in their relationship and Chud's development that he's begun to be less of an arrogant douche and in this moment is acting with strict professionalism, as if he didn't swallow his pride and rely on someone that had proven themselves to be trustworthy in a crisis. People could die. The detonators are all randomly hidden around the area, one in the middle of a river, one hidden as a thermos, one hidden behind an artificial waterfall, and the last on the bummer himself. I wonder if it's that guy that has an actual non-generic design and is wearing the emblem of a net navvy.
Though speaking of, the custom clothing industry has got to be making a killing in the .exe verse, as everyone with a unique navvy wears their emblem on them in some way. That's definitely not something you get off the rack at Kohl's. Dave!
Oh, and look! He's an environmental terrorist.
Oh goody! How I just love pointing out the hypocrisy of these Nimrods.
See, he signed on with Gospel to protect Okuden Valley from all the tourists who leave trash and litter around the parks, thus went along with a plan that, by destroying this dam, will preserve the beauty of this place.
Forgetting entirely that when the dam breaks, everything that is downriver a bit will be flooded by the rushing waters, uprooting innumerable trees, drowning native wildlife, and washing away arable and fertile soil which plants need to grow, leaving solely rocks, gravel, and sand. Upstream, you'd likely destroy calm water in which fish laid their eggs, to not even get into those that would likely be left on open ground by the receding waters. And the number of upriver plant life that have also now lost their primary source of hydration. Also, often the land around dams and water reservoirs are classified as nature preserves due to the area not considered fruitful for land development because of the presence of such facilities, which its destruction would then render moot. So essentially, in this act, you're destroying the nature you love so much, all for the sake of some candy wrappers some twits left on the ground. Just a reminder, environmental terrorists in fiction are always imbeciles. I have not found a single exception.
The bomb computer map layouts are all the same, with numbers on the ground directing you to their main access controls, which are always at 00, but complicated in how the paths of them are often booby-trapped and explode, slowing your progress and turning the map into a maze. Also, try and farm the handy viruses for the time bomb battle chips. While not effective against Dave's Navi Quickman, they're a useful and powerful early game chip for dealing with viruses. Quickman, however, is a right pain, as if you hit him at the wrong time, he'll deflect whatever attack you send at him. The key is to dodge his attacks until he waits patiently, or until after he's just attacked himself to counter him. But his movement speed arguably makes him the fastest Navi in all of the games, though by proxy he's also massively fragile, as shown with us just one-hit KOing him with Life Sword.
Have I mentioned I love that advance?
Though unfortunately Dave conned us, revealing the last detonation program in fact was Quickman. Thus by deleting him, the bomb's going to blow!
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom!
Yeah, no. Chad finished pulling the plug on the main bomb, so the detonator has nothing to send a signal to. Thus, this moron, who claims to have an IQ of 170, is arrested due to the actions of a pair of 10-year-olds.
Outsmarted by a child in short pants? No!
And your stupid navies, too!
And to show Rabito actually has a role in the story, she catches on to how the pair saved the dam and gets Lan on TV to credit him for his accomplishment. Also take note, while I am heavily critical about characters in Lan's archetype of the slacker who's a savant at some element of battle or combat due to a lot of them being idiotic asshats, the reason Lan always gets a bye with me is the humbleness he showcases in just wanting to help people and doing what would help people instead of obeying a bullheaded, selfish, impulsive whim. That kind of character works when they are not out to glorify themselves, as often that is exactly where they go wrong while mugging for the fucking camera. Still, Gospel's not worried. Their next operative is under contract.
Good, now put on that tutu and dance into the streets to the tune of Venus Say. I really like Busy's music.
As Lan is encouraged to work on his assigned research project, he comes across a somehow intact balloon from another nation, which inspires him to write that paper on them. The nation, Yumland, we never really see despite it being regularly referenced through all of the following games. Sure, there's a map used in Battle Network 4 of the supposed country, which makes it seem like it's supposed to be Thailand, but never anything concrete is ever shown of it. But because Lan's part of a cliché character archetype, he loves food of all types. Yumland is known for its delicious food, so he's going to research it by heading to Yumland's network and contacting the purported pen pal that sent the balloon which set this all off. Though to do that, requires the A license from the official's facility. Here, however, we meet another side boss, and one that remains a recurring character and ascended extra in all forms of the .exe media. The fan favorite, Mr. Famous.
Why is he famous? Well, the character is actually a self-insertion of Megaman scenario writer Masakazu Iguchi, Famous's name in the Japanese version being Meijin Eguchi, and this reference is lost in localization. Damn it.
In Battle.Networks 2, 4, and 5, however, his Navis are all fan-made creations, not based on prior characters from mainline canon, with this game showing us the Navi Gateman. Gateman guards himself with an invincible barrier that you need to attack around, and also evade the stuff that's thrown out of it. But since everything's tied to that, he's not too bad. And every time you end up fighting him in any game, he always gives up something exceedingly useful to you. In this case, after you're able to kick Gateman's ass a second time, as the first one is free, you'll not only get his Navi chip, but a second folder.
And with that Navi chip, congratulations! You now have all you need to break the game.
See, by combining Fan, Wind, and the Gateman chip, you generate the Gator Program Advance, a multi-hit advance that, with additional increases from attack boost chips, can kill almost any enemy and Navi instantly, and is the most popular means to achieve near constant Battle S rankings with anything you fight, which is needed to obtain something later.
Sure, you're still missing full custom and a bunch of asterisk chips that makes this thing insanely powerful and consistent, and the best builds of it features the Life Sword 3 element blades, so my sword chip obsession is more than satisfied. But you've pretty much been given your easy win condition once you farm 5 copies of each of the relevant advanced chips and the attack increasers. Back in the day, any sign of a folder featuring this advance in tournaments or even versus play was blacklisted, as it was that rapidly abused and reduced things to who could press A fastest.
The problem with it is, it makes the game boring to rely solely on this one program advance. Oh, don't get me wrong. Since Battle Chip ends any collection until the third game is like pulling teeth, every player abuses the hell out of it, simply so they can deal with the completion nonsense to get what they want to play with.
But it's just, the fun is in playing with all the chips, especially your favorites, and the variety of how you can build things. Say what you will of Battle.Networks 4, 5, and 6, since the original at-the-time reviewers slandered the crap out of them for lacking innovative gameplay, when the focus of each successive entry was on the freaking story, like it should be for an RPG, they encouraged chip variety with the Soul and Cross systems, whereas the first 2, technically 3, emphasized a single overpowered combo to be able to destroy the opposition, which the style change system here only fits into with how you really only want to use 2 of them for the ease of accessing the uber-powerful program advances. Battle.Network 3 at least gave a reason why you would want to gain and then use each style in turn, and the Soul and Cross systems then enhance people's approaches to strategizing their gameplay.
Though it always amuses me that Famous, who goes around endeavoring to help people, is the one that is responsible for giving this to the player community, as Gator is the single most powerful program advance in the game. Well, okay, there's also the program advance Bodyguard, which deals 18 attacks that inflict 100 damage each when you're hit by an attack, but I always had extreme trouble pulling that one off, and there's a lot that one just won't work against.
And that's also with exception to Darkness, which deals an automatic 3,000 damage to everything on the field, which is enough to kill anything and everything in most of the series, but you can't actually get Darkness without cheating due to the Navi chips part of that advance not having the special distribution event relate to them in the West. There's a reason cheating the chips really is not that big a stigma to the players of these games.